Canada, greatest country in the world. We want to share the richness of your soil. This place I love, my home and native land. We welcome all, and with you we'll stand. We'll set you straight with law, policy, and practice. Here on the Canadian Immigration Podcast. I am your guy for info that's up to date. Help with your forms or whatever you might need. This place I love, my home and native land. We welcome all, and with you we'll stand. We'll set you straight with law, policy, and practice. Here on the Canadian Immigration Podcast. To visit, work, or learn and grow. If you need help, we'll meet your goals. We'll hold your hand, we'll make it so. Here on the Canadian Immigration Podcast. Here on the Canadian Immigration Podcast. Here on the Canadian Immigration Podcast.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Canadian Immigration Live Q&A. I'm here with my special guest, Cédric. How you doing, Cédric?
Doing really well, Mark. How are you?
Good. Well, you don't have long, curly, dark hair, so we'll have to let that kind of go. Cédric is stepping in for Alicia today because Alicia is in her van with her family driving across Canada, having her Canada little tour here through July. So she's going to be away this month, and Cédric's going to be joining me. And yeah, so we're ready to have an awesome little live Q&A today. Now, I think some of you probably, if you've listened to the podcast before, I just had to crack that one open. So we're excited. Tomorrow's Canada Day. So you had a little Canada Day intro there. And some of you guys' comments, you guys always just crack me up. You are so funny. Let's just see here. I'm just going to pull off my little lower third here. Okay, let's pull in some of these comments. So we've got Ravi is tuning in here. Hello, Ravi. And then Andy says, and Andy's actually in my Express Entry Masterclass right now. So thanks for joining me, Andy. He says, I've said before, your knowledge and passion about immigration is next level, but to have a custom introductory song with the lyrics Canadian Immigration Podcast, that's next level, next level. Yeah, that was probably about 6 years ago when I started my podcast, maybe 7 years ago, I found a couple in the US, Gifty Song, and I'm not even sure if they're still doing songs, but I told them what I wanted them to put in the song, and that plays at the end of all of the podcast episodes that we release, or at least it should play. And so, yeah, I love that little song. It kind of encapsulates how I feel about the country and just the land that's really welcoming to immigrants. And so thanks, Andy. Very, very cool. And thanks for all of your participation in the Express Entry step-by-step course. It's great to have good students. And whether you're an immigration consultant or an applicant itself, yeah, those classes are just next level. They're awesome. Okay, let's see what else we have here. Kiara, on Facebook, on the Canadian Immigration Institute Facebook page, she says, "Happy Canada Day. If I am currently a teacher, what is the best way to immigrate for permanent residency and continue my career?" I click that bell, Kiara, and then I say, book a consult with us, and we can go through all of that, because there's a whole bunch involved when it comes to determining pathways to permanent residence. And so, so we recommend that you slide over to our website right here, and right at the top, you're going to click on Speak to a Lawyer right up here, and that will take you to here where right now Cédric is joining, and then next week he's going to be slipping away. But you can go here and you can access Alicia if you go to hers, and you'll see here for June. And if you go to July, she's going to be back at the end of the month, but she's gone. But we always make sure that we've got people that are available to do consults pretty much at any time. And so you can click on here, choose whoever you want. You got the man, the myth, the legend right here, Cédric. So you've got lots of options here. So check that out. All right. Okay, I'm dancing around here. Here we go. Get on the right one here. So that's what I recommend, Kiara. Okay, let's see here. Anand says, "Happy Canada Day to Mark and Cédric." This is awesome. Tabor says, "Happy Canada Day, Mark and Cédric from Winnipeg, Manitoba." That's awesome. I love that. Cédric, you got some connections with Winnipeg yourself, don't you?
Yeah, my partner, she's from Saint Boniface, Winnipeg, so it's very snowy up there. I can definitely guarantee that.
Hopefully it's warmed up now, though. Hopefully there's just the mosquitoes you have to dodge now. All right.
Let's hope so.
Okay. Harsh says, "Good morning, Mark and Cédric. Happy journey to Alicia, connecting from Winnipeg as well." So we've got another Winnipegger. And then I love the LinkedIn connection. So we've got this individual. Good to see you as well on LinkedIn. Haydar says, "Happy Canada Day." And tomorrow, of course, everyone, is Canada Day. But, you know, Cédric, I was planning on going camping over the weekend, but there's been a couple different developments. And so I'm actually going to be around tomorrow. So I am holding out. Like, I've got this spider sense that's tingling that Minister Fraser may just use Canada Day as some big splash for maybe a particular PostGrad work permit 18-month extension, possibly. And so I think many of you probably are aware, if we slide over to, I'll get to the right one here. There we go. If you slide over to our YouTube channel, you'll see, of course, this is our live stream right now, but tonight at 5:20 p.m. Mountain Time, I am going to do a special PostGrad 18-month extension, top 5 things to do now video. I'm tired of waiting. I know what you guys need to do and start preparing. And so I've got a pretty good idea what the minister's going to do. And so in that video, I'm going to be sharing some insight, talking about some of the problem areas that people like are trip themselves up with. And there's a lot, but I did narrow it down to 5. And then I'm just going to share some insight on what I expect the program to look like so that all of you can get prepared now. And this is similar to the TR to PR pathway, what happened last year. You know, I had a good idea of where things were going, and my goal is to get you guys prepared before. It doesn't do a lot of good once an announcement happens. And if there are things or steps you could take in advance, well, let me help you to figure those out. So make sure you go and click on the notification button and join me tonight at 5:20 p.m. Mountain Time. That's 7:20 Eastern and 4:20 Pacific. So definitely check that out. And then, as always, I have this. Click this button to get notified because I have a course and a masterclass specifically associated with this when it's launched. Why? because of the many, many people that did not do things properly and either limited the length of their postgrad work permits, those extensions from last year, or they just did things wrong and got them rejected. And then it's a one-time deal. And then they missed the deadline. They couldn't refile. It was ugly. I do not want you to fall into this trap. I also want to let you guys know that we have decided, let's just get this sucker posted. So even though right now I'm in the midst of the Express Entry course, we have launched the start date for the next Express Entry course, because we know there's going to be a ton of people with the rounds of invitations starting again on July the 6th. We know that there is going to be a ton of people that are interested in jumping in. So I'm going to have some fun in July, Cédric, and then come August, well, August 1st to the 4th, that's when the masterclass is, but we have opened it up right now. So you can actually get in now, register, get access to the material, and start preparing. And there's nothing more powerful than having access to all of the lessons now, so that when the masterclass comes on August the 1st to the 4th, you have the ability to really drill down and ask really specific questions that relate to your situation because you've watched all the videos. And you can just follow here, like I always say, get all the information you want on here. And if you're wondering what's contained in those on-demand modules, 642 minutes, it's all here. All the lessons are listed. So click on the link below in the description of the video here that you're watching the live stream, and you can get more information on that. And just yesterday, I had a bunch of people asking me, what about the spousal course? So if I scroll down here, we've also set the date for the spousal course, which is August the 15th to the 19th. So you can click right now to get access to that course, get access to the videos, and start moving forward. I'm in the process with the spousal course of making a few updates that you will see as we go through here, just with some little tweaking I'm doing with the online forms. And so watch for that, but you can access that right now. And then those master classes will be the 15th through the 19th. All right. So just a little bit of an update, and the other courses are all still here for you. So you can check those out. And one thing I have been asking people is to post in the comments the next video, the next course, DIY course that you guys want me to do. And I think the overwhelming request from people is study permits. So more than likely, that's the next path we're going to go. Although the online permanent resident card extension, which many of you doesn't apply to, that's in the works too now that it's online and it's all accessible. So I'm going to be turning that around. So I got a few things on my plate, Cédric, a few things. Okay, let's go through a few more shout outs, and then we are going to jump to the questions. If you're posting questions, just hang on. Okay, we've got Zara here. She says, hey Mark, salut Cédric, ça va? Ça va bien?
Ça va bien. Et vous, Zara?
Excellent. Okay. Ami says, happy upcoming Canada Day, Mark and Cédric. Would have been great to celebrate it there, but got to wait for Coper. Yeah, you do, my friend, but you're close. Hang in there. Hang in there. Okay. Let's just see here. Anyone else? We got Noor, faithful follower, been around for a long time. Good to see you. And Aboud says, hello, Mark. You are a nice person and we feel good and you give us energy when we see you. Well, great. If that's at the very least, I give you inspiration to keep up the fight, then hey, it's all worth it. Jama's tuning in from South Africa. Leah Vali, hey, back again. Thank you for joining us. Great to have you. Violetta is from the UK. Let's see here. And I'm just doing shout outs. So we'll get to the questions in just a little bit here. Timur is from Kuwait, and we love to see where you guys are tuning in from. I love to see how far this live stream is reaching. Hello, Parth. Good to see you. Christopher, Venice, happy Canada Day. Love the flags. We also have Masood. He says, my first Canada Day celebration. Oh, we'll give you some celebration. All right, my friend. Sandeep, happy Canada Day to you. Okay, let's see what else. We're just about at the end of our shout outs. Matthew, thanks for connecting in. Hello to you. And Zara says, been a long time lover of these live Q&As, tuning in from the UK. You can translate that, Cédric. What is that?
J'ai hâte de vous entendre aujourd'hui. She's excited to hear from us today.
Excellent. Good. See, look at how we're taking this to the next level. If anyone wants to ask a question in Portuguese, I'm there. French, not so much. The irony is that I did learn a little bit of French in high school. How much do you learn in Alberta in high school? But when I learned Portuguese, the French, as we say in Portuguese, fugiu, it ran away. So yeah, very, very interesting. Okay. He says 52 watching, only 4 likes. Come on, people. Well, here's the interesting thing, Jalil. We have this being live streamed to not only YouTube, but to Facebook, to LinkedIn, and even to Twitter. And what I'm now discovering, and I'm going to have to make some decisions here, is I'm discovering that YouTube is, and especially YouTube, is not pushing it out the same way that it used to, because they're all greedy and selfish. Facebook only wants to post and to promote videos that are organic or just in their own space. And I get the sense that maybe YouTube is like that as well. So we're discovering, but people can always go back and watch his recordings. And remember, if you smash that notification button, you will get notified the moment we go live, and then you won't miss a single one. All right. And hey, it's summer as well, you guys. People are out enjoying the nice weather. It's the day before Canada Day. Some people are taking days off, so I'm not surprised. We're sitting, at least when I look now, at about 74 people. I suspect by the time we're done this video, it'll be up over 100 that are watching live, but that's just on YouTube. So that's in my feed. I see a ton of people here. Okay. Canadian Soul. Nice. I'm not sure what that image is. An MMA fighter, maybe? His face is kind of bloodied up there. That's pretty awesome. Hi guys, hope you're doing great. I love these profile pictures that people use. All right. Okay, let's see who else we've got here. George, good to see you. George, another alumnus of the Canadian Immigration Institute. Let's see here. Yolonis says, hello, Mark and Cédric from Algeria. Longtime viewer, first-time commenter. Can't wait for the 6th. I'll give you an applause. I love that. Thank you so much. All right, a couple more here. EJ's over in the KSA. Great to have you. And like I said, hold off on your questions. I'll give you the green light, and then we will have you post them. Keithan, happy Canada Day to you too. All right. Okay, perfect. Cédric, anything new and exciting you wanted to talk about before we transition to answering these questions?
Yeah, very briefly, we have a new blog on the new occupations for Express Entry. So there's going to be some changes happening in November to the occupational classes. And Chanel and I took a dive at what we expect to change. Obviously, we're still waiting for some details, but in short, you might be able to get extra points for people who are ineligible before might now become eligible for Express Entry. And in some cases, you can also have additional points for your work experience, since some jobs that were now NOC C or D are now going to be considered NOC A or B. So really interesting to keep an eye on this. We're obviously going to follow up as soon as we know more information. But for example, truck drivers, personal support workers, high school and elementary teacher assistants, it's all going to be new occupations that are now going to qualify for Express Entry. So that's very exciting. And as you know, Mark, and as a lot of you know, we have on July 6th, we're really expecting the draws for Express Entry to continue. So with that in mind, I'm actually going to be available most weekends in July on Saturdays to help our clients who can't reach us during weekdays. So a lot of availability to help with invitations to apply, to apply for Express Entry. We're here to help. I'm going to be working on Saturdays, and I can't wait to help everyone with their Express Entry applications.
Excellent. George is always a character. You do look French with this new haircut, Mark. Haha. Oh my goodness, these guys are hilarious. Okay, good stuff. Okay, we're going to share a little positive from Elias here. He says, just sharing an update with you all for positivism. AOR February 2021, upfront medicals passed June 29th, 2022. Okay. Moving forward, we like that positive, Elias. We like that positive. All right. Okay. So you guys can see we got lots of good stuff. Make sure, absolutely, and I will say this every live we do, head on over to Holthe Immigration Law. That's holthelaw.com, and make sure that when you do, you check out our resource section where our blogs are, and in there, we are constantly updating our blog options. Cédric actually has pumped out a couple. My visa application was refused. This is all about reconsideration requests. And we always have a corresponding video on the YouTube channel that we post that relates to it. Now, I'm just looking back here. This one, let's see. I wonder if we've released that one yet, Cédric.
We taped it, and I think we're still waiting.
Yeah, I think
for
we're
the
just in the
final touches.
process of releasing the video associated with this. And this is an opportunity. So we release the blog. You have a chance to read it, review it, and then we schedule lives, and then we record a more detailed explanation where we can provide more backstories, more anecdotal experiences that we've had, just to add more life to the blog post. And we always release those on the YouTube channel. So check that out. All right. Let's dive into these questions. Are you ready to go here? I think I need a little intro that says, "Are you ready to rumble?" All right. Okay, let's start off. So now make sure to put a Q in front of your question. Then we'll know it's a question that you want us to ask. If you posted it already, repost it again, because now is when we're going to take it. And look at that. Violette is right on top of it. Okay. Can I submit an application for study permit whilst waiting for final results from university, please? I have received a conditional letter of authorization. What do you think, Cédric? Do you think someone can use a conditional to apply for a study permit?
Yeah, so you definitely need to have your acceptance from a designated learning institute before going forward. There are some specific rules for conditional offers, so that has to be explored more in detail. It's hard to say. The fact that it's a conditional offer, you can apply for the study permit, but there are some caveats to it.
Yep. All right. Okay. Zara says, how to prove the number of hours worked as self-employed tutor for Express Entry, as work includes time spent tutoring and also preparing lesson plans, marking, taking inquiries from clients, preparing invoices, etc. So I'll tackle this Express Entry one, Cédric. Zara, this is something, probably one of the components of Express Entry that is the most misunderstood. So one of the biggest challenges whenever you're self-employed is you still have to prove essentially what an employed individual would prove. And hours of work can be challenging when you're self-employed, especially if you're providing, the details of the tutoring and the hours that you've spent tutoring. It's easy to get a reference letter or some piece of, documentary support showing that you actually did the tutoring and were paid for it. But the challenge is, how do you prove that you're actually working full-time continuously throughout that time? Well, you've hit the nail right on the head. You spent a ton of time preparing, marking, taking inquiries, all of the things involved in running your own business. And so it's your job to explain that in a letter of explanation to the officer. Now, one thing you'll notice, and I'll just slide over here, Cédric, and I'll show people the magical spot that is the source of all goodness when it comes to Express Entry. And it is called the Express Entry Completeness Check. I don't even need to type it in. It's so smart. Google knows where I search all the time. But this right here, these program delivery instructions, and I'm just going to adjust our window here so it appears a little bit better there. This is where we're going to find all of the instructions that program officers follow when they're assessing your documentary support. So if we go into here, you'll see there's lots of details on how to prove work experience, but many people don't realize that aside from the reference letter, there is a short little bullet point, and this is all we have to work from, you guys, a short little bullet point on if the applicant is self-employed, what has to happen. And so you'll see in here, even though they say, okay, articles of incorporation to show that you actually run a business, evidence of self-employed income, the receipts from the people you're tutoring for, documentation from third parties indicating the service provided. Well, that could be a letter from the individuals indicating what you did for them, and then receipts for the payment details. That's all fine and dandy. But you can see here, it says self-declared main duties or affidavits are not acceptable proof of self-employed work experience. Well, that's all great, but that's not helpful at all. So how do you then prove your duties and responsibilities? And how do you prove the number of hours worked per week when you have tutoring sessions that by far don't, amount to 30 hours a week of straight tutoring? So what do? Well, I'm going to show you guys something in here once again in the channel. If you go to the search button and you type in self-employed employed, let's see what comes up here. You will see that I have done a ton of videos in the past about self-employed. This one was 2 years ago. I've been talking about this stuff for 4 years. How do I prove work experience if I'm self-employed, and many other topics? How do I claim work experience if I'm self-employed? So you can see this has been a topic that has been covered over and over and over again in the YouTube. So you can always go back and search. And even though the information might be older, this individual was a translator, I think. And so he came and joined me on the live 2 years ago, and we shared some insight on this success story because he retained us and we helped him. But we've done this in the firm for musicians who, in the same way as you preparing for your tutor sessions, the musicians had practice time. They had preparing for their performances with the symphonies. And so there's a lot of things that you can do. And yes, you can't use self-declarations, but you can provide a letter of explanation. And you can also provide letters from your from the people, from the students that you've had, confirming that in addition to the time that you spent tutoring them, that you also were marking their assignments and grading them, or things like that. So sometimes we'll use that as a source as well, but you just have to be creative, and your obligation is to show on a balance of probabilities that you actually perform those duties. So this is something that really comes down to one of these, Zara, which is booking a consult where we can sort through everything. And Cédric, one of the reasons that I love those consults is because when you are with the client, we can respond to what they're telling us. So you'll say something, Zara, you'll say, okay, this is what I do. And then this little light will go off, boing, it'll turn on in my mind. And I'll be like, oh, okay, well, do you have this, this, this? And the only reason I would even think to make those recommendations is because of the dialogue that we have in a consultation. So yeah, the burden of proof is on you, Zara, to prove it. And sometimes it's not hard, and sometimes you have to do the best you can. And I've always found that through our collaborative review model, 2 heads are always better than 1. Okay, I'm going to turn this one over to the man right now, Cédric. This one is, let's see here. I just want to make sure. There we go. Okay, so we're going to pull up Matthew's question here. So he says, is it misrepresentation to not include the current job in the resume to be submitted to OINP? I've not added my current job in the FSW OEE profile. Please advise. So what do you think about that? If they're asking for a resume, we know when we apply to jobs all over, if I want to be a greeter at Walmart, I'm not going to emphasize that, that I've been a lawyer for a number of years, because they won't hire me probably. They'll say, oh, you're overqualified for a greeter position. I don't know. I think I'd be pretty awesome. But, sometimes people will tailor their resumes. Well, if you're applying to the OINP, what do you think? This is a tough one.
Yeah. So we'll start with your Express Entry profile. So right now, when you create your profile for the pool, you only need to declare the qualified work experience, the work experience that you are claiming to qualify for your Express Entry profile. Dealing with the OINP, you do need to declare all the work experience, and it could be a misrepresentation if you don't declare the current job. So yeah, I would update it. Once you get your invitation to apply for your Express Entry. That's at the point that you're gonna have to complete various forms, including your IMM 5669, and there's going to be a personal history section. And in this section, you're going to have to list all the different occupations that you've held since for the last 10 years, or in some cases, they ask you since the age of 18. So absolutely update your CV, include the current job that you have, your Express Entry profile. Again, I assume that you're in the candidate stage, that you've just created your profile, so it's fine, it's no problem. But when you get your invitation to apply, declare all your jobs, including your present job.
Perfect. All right, next question is from Manpreet. He says, I'm a Canadian citizen. I live with my son and want to apply for a super visa for my parents. My husband works in India. Can I show a cumulative income of my son, mine, and my husband for this purpose? Even though he doesn't live in Canada, he's in India.
When we're dealing with the proof of funds, they do allow for super visa, they do allow spouses to co-sign, but I don't think they allow children to co-sign. It only has
Yeah.
to be a common law partner or wife that can co-sign for the amount. And when we're dealing with super visas, the proof of income requirement is actually different than the other proof of income requirements. So we're actually going to go back to 3 years. Now, interestingly, there's actually COVID policies for 2020 and 2021 where they've actually change the amount of money that you need because they understood that people were not necessarily working as much during COVID due to closures and whatnot. So you can definitely have a look, but no, your son cannot you can't add your son for the amount of income to meet the LICO requirement. I don't what does LICO stand for, Mark? I don't know.
Low
There,
income cut off.
there we go. The low income cutoff. And like I said, special rules for super visas. So definitely take a look, and also rules for COVID. And no, your son can't combine his income.
All right. Okay. First super chat. This is from Raviraj Rao. Raviraj. So he says, currently in Canada on a visitor visa. Can I try flagpoling to get quicker work visa, or should I wait with normal application? Wife is working on a PostGrad in Knock-A. So he's eligible for the C41 spousal open work permit. Flagpoling. I'll offer a thought and then I'll turn it over to you. Having worked on the border as an officer, it would be a cold day in hell before I would ever send anyone down to the port of entry to adjudicate anything. More than ever before, the border officers just detest doing anything related to immigration. The pandemic, through all of that, they saw it as a great opportunity to really cut back and make life miserable for anyone who wanted to apply for any immigration. And let's face it, and this is where probably I'm offering, this is my opinion, okay? Surely there's always outliers and exceptions, but some ports of entry have, whether it's deliberate or just fortuitously, offered a very, very strong resistance to anyone coming there for any immigration purpose. So then they develop a reputation that they're awful. But the bonus for all the workers is that then us as immigration lawyers, we don't subject our clients to abuse going to those ports of entries, and we send them somewhere else. So what's the bonus? Less work for those officers. So although not all ports of entry are created equal, and yes, there are some exceptional circumstances where I do apply for work permits and things at ports of entry, the biggest challenge I have for you, my friend, is that often when you're here on a visitor visa, there's a number of different problems that can arise. One is, what was the intent of your visitor visa when you first, what was the purpose of your travel? And I've seen some ports of entry, like the Coots, Alberta port of entry, allege that you misrepresented yourself on your original entry when you said you were just coming to visit your spouse when all along you intended to work. So they get your phone, they look at it, they see if maybe you started doing a little training for your current employer. You're getting the PostGrad and you're eligible for it and you've filed for it. But sometimes people and employers, especially the crooked ones, can convince you to start a little bit early. Hey, we'll start paying you under the table. All kinds of awful stuff happen. But the border officers, they're very tricky. And I remember one officer, when I was doing my original training, he was what I would classify as a bad cop. He said to me, Mark, sometimes it takes a sneak to catch a sneak. And so basically the questions that he asked and were all designed to trip up the person and set them up into saying something that may or may not even been true. I don't know. But ultimately so that he could refuse them entry. And if you don't believe that's true, then you're on a different planet. So because of that, people always look at the ports of entry as this glorious, quick way of getting through when the processing times are terrible. And they are right now. They're terrible. But you really open yourself up to scrutiny and problems. And I can't tell you the number of calls I've gotten over the years from people who have received something called an ATL at the borders, which is basically an allowed to leave, and a deferral of examination. And they basically say, okay, so you go down to Coots. Coots says, Rao, I can see that based on a review of your phone that you may have started work earlier. That's illegal work. I'm going to bar you from Canada. I'm going to issue a 6-month ban from getting another work permit. And at this stage, I'm going to give you an option. I'm going to write a 44 report and refer you to an admissibility hearing, or you can choose to basically withdraw your application, and I will allow you to leave. And here's a nice little form. I will give you 2 weeks to report to the Edmonton airport and then fly out of Canada. And so, yes, am I fear mongering? Heck yeah, I am, because this is a reality that exists that people do not talk about. And I can't tell you how often I see people rush into the borders to only have their lives destroyed. So maybe everything is fine for you, Rao, but that's my feelings on sending people down to the port of entry as a ex-border officer. All right, Cédric, anything to add? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's how to say this? There's, as you mentioned, I mean, there's very high risk into doing this. Everything from why you came to Canada to your work visa. You could find yourself in a situation where you might have to leave Canada, right? And then it's going to complicate as well. It might complicate your permanent residency as a spouse if there's misrepresentation. So it can get quite tricky. We usually don't advise flag pulling. It might be best in the situation to maybe return to your country, go visit your parents, or really just defer any travel that you have and wait until wait until you go back to your country, do it from your country of origin, and then fly back to Canada. Absolutely.
All right, there you go. Proceed at your own risk, apparently, is the best advice here. Okay, this question is from your guy. This is your guy, Cédric. So maybe this is your question. Let's see. So, hi, Mark. First of all, and just for those listening, actually, no, we're not pushing these out to the podcast right now. It's just not as effective. So these are meant for live. Okay. Hey, Mark, first of all, thank you so much for your helpful videos. Okay, question. Can I use my 5 weeks of NOCB experience from one of the employers towards my 12-month experience, or it will look fishy? So I'm going to go out on a limb here, Cédric, and I'm going to say this is CEC. Okay, I'll say it's the Canadian Experience class. So what do you think? Can you use 5 weeks of experience?
You actually made a whole video about it. I think there's a whole video you published this week on this.
Yes, I did.
Well, there we go. Question answered. Right, so we're talking about the eligibility. Well, there's 2 parts, right? The eligibility and the actual work itself. So in the NOC, so you have to meet the minimum eligibility of, again, for Canada Experience class, 12 months of continuous work. So you might not be able to use it if you're going to be using it for the qualifying work experience. In that case, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But a whole video on it. I mean,
there's the video right there. It's sitting at about 1,500 people. This one, I'll be honest, should be at about 5,000 people. The reality is this is one of the greatest misconceptions when it comes to express entry. And in this video, I covered the situation both. So not just if the person is applying under CEC, but also how it works for applying with multiple positions for FSW as well, which technically it is possible. Okay, let's see here. Next up is Ravneet, and Ravneet says, hello, Mark and Cédric. I've received my passport request and plan to fly next year. Can I plan a foreign trip before that? Can that have any implications on my Canadian landing later? So he's already got his passport request, and he's obviously getting ready to submit his passport and finalize his PR. So Cédric, what do you think? Any implications on him traveling, landing later?
Yeah. So assuming you're not coming to Canada, so don't come to Canada. Wait until you get confirmation of PR. Make sure that you respect the date that you have to enter Canada by, which is very important. Usually it's linked to the expiry of your medicals. But no, I mean, as long as you respect the rules of the host country for their own immigration proceedings, you don't commit a crime, you come back to your own country. No, there's no risk.
Yeah. And just to reiterate, you guys, yes, if you go over and murder someone in another country, it's probably has the potential of you be then being determined to be inadmissible to Canada for criminality.
Well, sorry, just to add to this, Mark, I mean, that's quite obvious. I meant more on the immigration side, right? You get to a country and, you can only stay for 30 days, let's say, and then you miss your flight, you end up at the country for 35 days, and at the airport, you pay a fine to get out, right? that would definitely complicate
Small little
things.
stuff.
Small little stuff that you wouldn't really think of. But yes, don't go around murdering people is generally good advice.
Yes, or one of the things I see quite frequently is, on the American side, is DUIs, which are misdemeanor offenses in the US. But in Canada, they are a pretty serious indictable offense. And we actually treat them as serious criminality now because of the changes to the punishment provisions within our criminal code. So DUIs can be a major, major issue. Okay, this one I think we've covered before, but we'll pull it up again because we're doing a ton of study permit work. Can I enter the pool, express entry pool, and apply for PR while being on a student visa?
Yeah, so we usually don't recommend that you apply for both at the same time. So if you're in your country of origin and you really want to come to Canada and you do a study permit at the same time do express entry, we do not recommend that. Reason why, your student visa is a temporary intent. You're showing to Canada you want to come to study and return to your country. Express entry is a permanent intent. You're going to come to Canada with permanent residence. You're going to stay in Canada, establish yourself, and work on your citizenship and get your citizenship, right? So we don't recommend doing both at the same time. However, once you do come to Canada and you have started studying, you are able to make an express entry profile. Absolutely. When you're talking about a student visa, obviously try to make it at least a 2-year program to get your postgraduate work permit for at least 2-3 years to qualify to get more points and get your PR quicker. Or actually just get your PR in some cases.
Yes, exactly. Okay. Abood says, hello, and thanks for your nice videos. I just have a question. Is there a specific draw for CEC, or the cutoff score will be the same with the FSW? So this harkens back to how the rounds of invitations have worked. Now, once again, we're pulling up this crystal ball, you guys, and my crystal ball is still a little bit hazy. Like the smoke is kind of swirling around inside and it hasn't parted to reveal what Minister Fraser is going to be doing come July the 7th or whatever day it is. The reality is, as you're going forward, we know that traditionally, if there's been just CEC draws and they've continued to happen quite frequently, that of necessity, the scores will go down because the number of candidates in Canada is a finite number. Not that there isn't a finite number globally if people want to immigrate, but the reality is those CEC draws, the cutoffs, were traditionally always lower than the no program specified draws, which include FSW. So will the score be the same? If it's a no program specified, it doesn't matter whether you go through CEC or FSW, whoever has the highest human capital, at least historically, they're the ones that are going to get the invitations to apply. But if it's a CEC only draw, then we have seen those scores be a little bit lower than the no program specified draws historically. What Minister Fraser ultimately does with the new strategic, the ability he has to target strategic cohorts of people, we'll have to see how that plays out.
And Mark, if I can just add, I don't see any C19 questions in the chat, finally, for once. But if I can add, what's going to be happening is in the next 6 months or year, the minister is going to start to draw very specific profiles, right? We might see people with a specific NOC code. We might see people with specific region requirements where they have family members and they're going to join their region. Usually it's outside of big cities, outside of Toronto and whatnot. So also, in some cases, what we do expect is that the minister is going to say, okay, everyone who has this certain NOC code, who has this occupation, you've been accepted for express entry. Now, again, we don't know the specifics. We don't know how it's going to work, but we are expecting occupation-specific express entry draws and also location-specific express entry draws. So if your application has expired, you've been working on your application, you've been putting it off, you don't, right? Right now is a great time to make those decisions as to whether or not you want to reapply or create a profile for the express entry. Obviously, some caveats. We talked about the study visa. Same thing applies in some cases for the work permits. In any event, if you know that express entry is what you want to do and you've been putting it off, right now is a great time to speak with one of us, do our courses, get refreshed, and get your candidate profile created for express entry.
And I was just looking here, Cédric. just while you were talking, because I haven't never taken a look just to see where it's at. What you guys have to understand is this bill C19, this budget, this omnibus bill, and let me just flip back here to the right one. I believe, Cédric, that this is the one, I believe, that where the changes are lumped into. I believe it's this one here. And so as we look through here, you can see it's worked its way through the House of Commons, and then they slammed it into the Senate and have excuse me, and have been ramming it through. And so I just noticed that third reading was completed on June the 23rd. And so you can read the Hansard debates and things like that right here. But I just wonder. I guess it's possible.
I think at the very top it was saying it received royal assent. Yeah, there we go. The bill received royal assent on June 23rd.
Yep.
So what's going to happen now is the cabinet, again, it depends how this decision is being made, but it might have to go to cabinet to make decisions as to how the Minister of Immigration is then going to issue instructions, directives, make ministerial orders, essentially, and how they're going to shape the program. So as we've talked about a lot on the podcast, this bill just gives powers to the minister. We're still waiting to see how the minister is going to use these powers. In any event, really expecting a lot of changes with express entry, occupation-specific draws, location-specific draws. Great time to reapply.
Yeah. And so the answer is, yeah, things are moving forward, and it is entirely possible that come July that the minister will do strategic. I didn't think they were going to be able to wedge it through that fast, but that's what happens when you own the Senate. There's no pushback. It's like formality. Bam, 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 bam. It's just pounded right through. Yes, that's what happens when you own the Senate. So there we go. Good times. Learn something new every day. All right. Okay. Sheikh, good to see you connecting in on LinkedIn. Very, very, very happy to see that you appreciate the valuable information. Okay. Tushant says, my TR to PR, ING, international grad, files background in process. After that, what's going to be the next step? My eligibility is not started yet, and how much more time I can expect. So basically, we've got a TR to PR that's been filed, and when they go online, they can see that the background checks are in process. So what's the next step? What do you think, Cédric?
Yeah, so we're actually seeing a lot of clients reaching out for TR to PR, and a lot of individuals who've applied right when it came out, they're actually being asked to update a lot of their forms right now. So they're going through the forms, and so you might be expected to update your forms, provide more information. If there's any errors, you might have to correct those errors and explain why you made errors and whatnot. So depending on, again, case specific, but depending on your case, you could be expected to update your forms. And after this, we're really hoping that you're going to get a request for a criminal record check in Canada. Go give your fingerprints, send it off, and passport request, and off we go.
All right. Next question here. This one is from Prasant. Let's see if we can sort this one out. Why is getting an LMIA approved job so complicated? Do employers post the ad for the sake of posting? This question is specific for foreign workers. It's regarding Canadian work permits for skilled workers of agriculture, I think. So basically, this comes down to 101 on labor market impact assessments. And this is, I'll let you give a little bit of an answer, Cédric, then I'm going to chime in on some of the crooked, unscrupulous things that some representatives do, which is really driving this discussion or this question from Prasant. But he says, is it so complicated? Like, are they posting ads just for the sake of posting? So what is ESDC? What do they want employers to show in the context of an LMIA, Cédric? Like, why are they having employers post ads?
Yeah, so the bottom line is the employer has to prove that there's no PR, no permanent resident or Canadian citizen available to do this work. Now, ESDC, so the Economic Social Development Canada, which is the department that is in charge of the labor market impact assessments, the LMIA, take this very seriously, right? Essentially, Canada is going to be taking a foreign national, getting them into Canada, and then getting them work, right? So obviously, Canadians and permanent residents want to have work. They want to work. So it's a very scrutinizing process. We got to make sure the employer is legit, all their business is lined up, and I'm sure Mark, you're going to touch upon this. But essentially, then they have to advertise, and it's very, very strict, right? You don't put the wage in the posting. It's not your LMIA application as an employer is going to fail. You don't include certain specific information, or it's a limit, or the contract is too short, or you failed some very basic posting requirements. It will get returned. You will get rejected, and we're seeing people doing it themselves and having multiple tries. Mark, we had an interesting chat with an employer based in British Columbia where they spent 9 months trying to figure out the LMIA process with a consultant, only to learn that by now they probably would have had their approval months ago, right? So it's a very strict process. They scrutinize every single thing. No employers don't just post ads for the sake of posting it. They try really hard, but a lot of cases they need help of a professional, someone who does this on a daily basis to go through it. So, if the employer is doing it on their own, you could expect it to get rejected, to do 1 or 2 LMIEs. If they're working with a lawyer, working with us, we work really hard to review the documents and make sure that it's going to succeed on the first try.
Perfect. Okay. Here's what I want to say about this. At times I get requests to help people who, for whatever reason, maybe were working on an LMIA, or they had received an approved LMIA, but then their work permit got rejected. So they would book a consultation with me to try to figure out what went wrong with the work permit. Well, as a conscientious immigration lawyer who values the importance of understanding everything, all of the details, all the minutia, I would always go back and look at the LMIA. And boy, Cédric, if I had even $1 for every one of those consults that I did, where the actual advertising and recruitment that was conducted to get the LMIA, if I had $1 for every time I looked at it and there was some monkey business going on, well, I'd have enough to probably, go on a nice vacation with my wife somewhere. The reality is some agents out there are literally advising the employers to ignore the responses to the ads. So I remember one case, someone got returned. They got their work permit refused at Coots, Alberta, port of entry that I avoid like the plague. Got the work permit application rejected at the border, and basically they received an allowed to leave and you got to head out of the country. And when they retained me to help, I went back and looked at the LMIA. And when I talked with the employer, they had hired another regulated immigration consultant to help them file the LMIA. But I said to the employer, okay, this is kind of a general administrative role. You're in Edmonton. How many people applied for the job? They said, oh, we got lots of people, like 120 or something. I said, how many did you interview? None. Why not? Well, our consultant told us that we didn't have to do that. And I just about fell off my chair. I said, well, that's completely fraudulent. That's misrepresentation. And you're going to expose yourself to a whole heap of problems if IRCC does an audit. And so I said, look, we have to go back and refile, and we have to resubmit the application. And in the course of, because by the time she applied for a work permit, and she had to go back to India, the original LMIA had expired. So we had to start over from scratch. And I said, look, if you post the advertisements and you get 120 responses, you have to hire them before you can hire her. And that's as far as it went. Didn't go any further. I don't know. Maybe they went back to the consultant and said, well, this consultant's telling us we don't actually have to do what the government is expecting us. I'm not sure, but that's something I see a lot of, Cédric. A lot of bad advice that employers are receiving that's just designed to twist their way around the requirements so that they can get an LMIA approved. And the LMIA process right now is so awful and difficult because of that fraud and the crooked people that are submitting these applications. So that leads into our next question here, nicely from Eric. I found a recruiting agency who guarantees finding a job in 90 days, but charges at least 20% of first year income. Could this be considered by IRCC as buying a fake job, and any way to tell if it's a scam? So I'll pull up Chanel's blog, but what are your thoughts on this, Cédric?
It's questionable. It's questionable. I mean,
That's a statement.
Pardon me?
That's an understatement. Yeah.
No, I mean, so it has to be a genuine job offer, right? Made through the employer's portal, and generally, no, this is not going to work.
Yep.
The
Well,
employer can,
it's right out. It's illegal. It's illegal to pay someone to find a job for you. And that's exactly what you're doing. And this recruiting agency is crooked and evil and a scamming entity. I don't care who they say they are. If they're charging an individual anything to find them a job, it is flat out illegal. So Chanel worked in recruitment before she joined our firm. So she has quite a bit of background in that before she became a lawyer. We have a podcast associated with this as well as a video, but she did an excellent blog on the interplay between recruitment and the foreign worker, the LMIA process. And so if we go back to this original question here that was asked, 20% of the first year of income, could this be considered buying a fake job? Well, maybe the job's legitimate even. Maybe they have a stable full of employers who they give a kickback to out of the money that you're paying for them to give you the job offer, which we see a lot of. I see a ton of that. Like Surrey is the cesspool of this. Surrey, BC is the cesspool. I see so many out there. I don't know what the heck's going on out there. But when you're desperate and you're looking for a job offer, people are willing to do anything, including paying $30,000 for an employer to give them a job offer and go through the LMIA process. And I can pretty much guarantee that they're following the same path as that basically what Prasanth was asking here about. They're just posting the ad for the sake of posting. The reality is this is a real sketchy industry, and you have to be super careful. If it looks and just appears to be too good to be true, it's because it is. And any of these guaranteed stuff, they can't guarantee squat. Ultimately, it comes down to the jobs and the availability of Canadians and permanent residents. And I'm pretty sure this recruitment agency, which I'm assuming is in your home country, Eric, is they don't have their more statistical data than the government does on labor shortages. And so for them to guarantee a job in 90 days, boy, I'll tell you, that's just, yeah. Well, aside from the illegality of you paying a dime for a job. So, all right, kind of took that one over. That's just, yeah, it's extremely, extremely painful for me to see this. Okay, let's see here. Here's a tricky one. This goes back to Express Entry, Cédric. So Ravi says, I got a reference letter in February 2022, which mentions my salary. If the salary increases before submitting my EAPR, do I need to get a revised reference letter, or the salary increment letter with the old reference letter is good enough?
You're going to want to update. Yeah, sorry, I cut you off. Got a reference letter in February 2012, mentions salary increases. I mean, you're going to meet, in this case, it assumes that you're already meeting the updated funds, like minimum funds that you need, right? So if there's no issue towards that. It's okay.
So if you had here, I'll rephrase it here. So basically what he's asking is, and this is, I think if I read through this, like, do those letters become stale dated? And if it's my current employer and my wage is increased for Express Entry, and this is really what we're getting at, the electronic application or permanent residence. So he has an older letter, he's got a salary bump up, and now he's wondering, okay, can I just use that letter? And then maybe include another letter saying I've had a salary increase, or should I just get a new letter entirely? That's really what he's asking.
Oh, I see. Sorry, I got a little bit confused. No, absolutely. I would just get a new letter included in the EAPR. Pretty straightforward. Yeah, no problem. Assuming, again, this is an increase in salary, it's not a decrease in salary, so no issues with the minimum funds requirements. Update it, get a new letter, get them to explain that when you got the update. Obviously, wet signature, date, submit it, and away we go.
Yeah, absolutely. Theoretically, I guess you could. One of the issues with theoretically, I guess you could get an incremental letter, but the reality is, what is the timeline for you? And if you need those days leading up to, filing your EAPR, if you get your invitation to apply, that's really what's happened here. Probably, Ravi's going to get an ITA. And then the question is, as far as that increase, and maybe you're a PNP, I suspect also, Ravi, if in that period of time, it locks in when you got your ITA. So technically speaking, if your letter was just only a couple days before you received your invitation to apply, then your profile is locked anyways. Then when you're getting ready to file your EAPR, it opens back up for you to re-enter that information in. And so sometimes, I think the best practice is exactly what Cédric advised, which is just to get a new letter. It's your current employer. There shouldn't be an issue. But understanding that when it comes to, your profile, that's when all of your eligibility and your comprehensive ranking system score and all that are locked in. But wage doesn't really form a part of that, other than making sure that the information you're providing is true, complete, and correct, which is what you're attesting to when you sign off on that. So there we go. I think we've covered that. All right. And Cédric, we have hit the 1 hour mark. I can't believe that we've hit it so fast, but we are here. We've hit the 1 hour mark, and I think it's time we're going to wrap this up. I'm just going to check and make sure we don't have any straggler super chats, because you guys always do that to me. Okay. All right. Let's see. We do have a couple. So we'll finish off with the super chats here. And then, okay. So this question is from Neil, and Neil says, I have a foreign Master of Science degree. I'm currently enrolled in a second Master of Science. When I get an ITA, I'll be in one of the intermediate terms. Should I get that degree evaluated? How recent should that evaluation be? Okay. So, when I get an ITA, I'll be in one of the intermediate terms. Well, understand, Neil, that once you have a master's degree, whether I'm assuming, I can't tell exactly if you're in Canada or outside, currently enrolled. Can't tell if you're inside or outside Canada. Ultimately, once you hit a master's degree, you're not getting any more points for that if you have 2 master's degrees. So the second one really is almost extra. Clearly, the first one needs to have an educational credential assessment. And when you're completing your study history section, you only need to list the education that you're claiming points for. But in your personal history, that's where you update everything. If you're inside Canada and you're waiting to complete that in order to get points, well, until that degree is actually completed, you're not getting credit for the extra 30 points for that master's degree in Canada. And so I'm assuming, you say you're currently enrolled in the second Master of Science. So I think that's how you approach it. As far as how recent should the evaluation be? Well, the educational credential assessment has a shelf life of 5 years. So you can, so really up to 5 years that it should be good for. And then obviously your Canadian credentials are not going to expire if you've completed your degree, and you've got the confirmation of completion of studies and your diploma and your transcripts, then you're good to go. So I think, at least from what I can see here, I don't know if you have anything else to add, Cédric. Sometimes the questions are a little bit vague, and so it's a little bit more challenging to extract out something that's not only going to answer Neil's question, but is of general applicability to everybody watching. So let's see what else we have here.
Just briefly, Mark. Yeah. I mean, Neil, you're going to have to declare your studies in your IMM 5669 when you get your invitation to apply. Right? We talked about the personal history section. There's a different section for education. So you're going to have to declare it when you do apply. But at this point right now, as Mark has said, your second master's degree is not giving you extra points. It's really not doing anything for you at this time.
All right. So Ethan is asking us to also step in and pull up our crystal ball. What is the average amount of time between re-medical passing and receiving the COPR? Been waiting for a month so far. Based on my experience, I'd say typically, for many overseas countries, it can be up to 2 months. So, I'm not surprised that you've been waiting for a month. And Ethan, I wouldn't be surprised if you had to wait a number of weeks still in order to get that, to get your COPR. But you are in the last leg, my friend. So congratulations. Okay, this one's from Reshmi. Reshmi says, can we add a spouse after notification of interest from Ontario, if not added already in the Express Entry profile? Okay, Reshmi, are you talking about a spouse that you're like someone that you declared as non-accompanying in Express Entry? Or is this a spouse where you, are just recently married? That's really what it comes down to. and I don't think we have enough information to answer that, but I can tell you, excuse me, scratchy throat. Ontario routinely doesn't get too fussed about people amending their spouse to accompanying after the notification of interest. Really after the nomination has been received. So, after an NOI, you're still at the stage where you haven't yet received the nomination. So, they don't generally, but I always advise them, and I try to get something in writing saying, hey, I've listed my spouse as non-accompanying and I'd like to, add them as accompanying now, because obviously with that extra 600 points, it makes all the difference in the world. And I found that Ontario tends not to be too fussed about that. Okay, I'm going to have Cédric answer the last one from Alina. Alina says, I applied for a postgrad work permit in April using 5710 June 2019 version form. So this is April. But this form was updated in April to the 5710 April 2022 version. Will it negatively affect my application? What should I do now? Okay. So.
Yeah. It very well could. Worst case scenario, it gets refused. It's also a possibility they send it back to you to be updated. Again, it's going to have to also do, you applied in April. However, when was the new version of the update of April? I think it was end of April, Mark. I could be mistaken, but the specific date, the day that you applied for it, was there a new form, right? So, best case scenario, they best case scenario, they make a mistake. They don't even realize it. No problem.
Show some mercy.
Exactly. The middle ground is they send you the updated form, you do the updated form, you send it back, and worst case scenario, they reject your application. So those are the possibilities, and I'd say it's more likely than not that you're going to have to complete the updated form when it comes. It's going to result in more delays for your application.
Yeah. And I'll also add, Alina, that in past discussions that I've had with immigration, while serving on the national executive of the Canadian Bar Association, the immigration section, one thing that they have repeatedly told us, because we've asked this question over and over and over again, is that they will continue to honor the previous version of the forms for a number of months as the new one is rolled out, recognizing that people fall into the exact same situation that you have. And many, many times when we're doing our collaborative reviews, and I think by now you guys are well aware that our firm is not the same as other firms. We have a different approach to how we work with our clients. But one of the things when we're doing our collaborative review approach right here, one of the things that we really focus on more than anything else is ensuring before we file a spousal, before we file an application for permanent residence through the PR portal, anything like that, whether Schedule A's or or generic forms or anything, that we are always just almost fanatical in our attempts to make sure that we are using the most current document. And once again, if I had $1 for every time that we were getting ready to file with a client and I go through and just take a double look to make sure none of the forms have updated, boom, there's an updated form. So yeah, in a worst case scenario, Alina, you've probably got your acknowledgement of receipt. You could consider completing the form again and sending it via web form, but we know they may or may not even upload it in any reasonable period of time, but that may be an option as well. But we would hope in these circumstances that IRCC would be reasonable and honor what they have told us as immigration lawyers for years now, that they will be reasonable and not just reject if a form has been updated and you submitted one that's just recently changed. So, all righty. I think that covers off everything for today, Cédric. We had another really good round of live Q&As. We'll finish off here with just a couple little announcements as before. You want to make sure that you pay close attention to this, you guys, because tonight, I am going to share my top 5 things to do now, not waiting any longer for the 18-month extension. So we've got people who, yes, I'm ready and I can't wait. Okay, we've got a little poll associated with it. All right. Igor's been working his magic here. That's fantastic. So, and I'm going to do this a little adjustment here. It's been bouncing around a little bit. Okay, there we go. Anyways, so this is going to go live tonight at 5:20. And why is it starting at 5:20? Well, it's starting at 5:20 tonight because I'm finishing up the express entry step-by-step masterclass at 5 o'clock. And then I need about 20 minutes, excuse me, to get set up for this session. So I'm not going to wait anymore for Minister Fraser. And like I said before, I have a sneaking suspicion that he's going to possibly want to do a little splash. And with Canada Day coming up tomorrow, well, why in the world would you not want to have a nice little announcement, which is in many cases, well, hey, we've now got the 18-month PostGrad. And so, yeah, I recommend you come on over here and get notified. I'm going to go live in about 5 hours. And then also, if we slide back to our Canadian Immigration Institute page here, you guys will see that we have officially opened the cart for the Express Entry course once again. So I'm wrapping up the last cohort here of our June Express Entry Masterclass, which is phenomenal. But August the 1st to the 4th is when we're going to have the masterclass. But this is really, really important that if you are going to take the course, that you choose to subscribe now so that you've got the month to go through everything, review it, and then it's going to result in potentially questions about your unique specific situation. And that's what I'm able to answer in these masterclasses. This is like the gravy on the mashed potatoes. So this is where it fills in all of those potential gaps. And then once again, you can get notified for the PostGrad course. I'm expecting that, it's entirely possible the minister makes the announcement tomorrow. Canada Day is a good day to do it. And then you can get notified when the program is launched. And then finally, the spousal sponsorship course, we've also opened the cart for that. That is starting August the 15th to the 19th. Same story. Get in now, access the videos, and then when the time comes for the masterclass, you will have queued up a ton of questions. And boy, those 1 hour sessions every evening throughout that week are just going to be fantastic. And Cédric, yeah, the group that I have right now, and Andy is one of them right here. He was jumping on early today to give us some shout outs at the beginning of our video. They're just awesome. The questions they ask are so good, and everybody just kind of becomes almost like a family. And there's a private group. We've got a site that's a community group site where people post their questions if they can't attend live. And then I pull those questions up, answer those. And there's like communication between the members of the group. And yeah, it's just phenomenal. I love doing it. All right. That's about all I got for today. Any final Canada Day, pre-Canada Day celebration words of encouragement to all these fine people?
Wow, it's putting me on the spot, Mark.
Aha.
I hope everyone gets their invitation to apply and makes their way to Canada to celebrate for next year.
Sounds good. All right, guys. Thanks so much. We'll see you again next week. I will be back at it Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. and obviously this afternoon at 5:20 p.m. Mountain Time. I'll be doing that special one focused on the 18-month extension that's coming. All right. Take care, everybody.